Good afternoon. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Today is Monday, July 18th, 2022. And everybody in the country is concerned about the massive heat wave. So, as a word of instruction and care, wherever you are, make sure that you're hydrating, make sure that you're aware of the dangers of overexposure to heat. Be safe and look out for people that may need your attention, people that either are at home or potentially outdoors that need extra care. Well, today we call this governance at the neighborhood level. And what's the idea? We've formed a partnership with Diana Hawkins and her crew over at Hawthorne Neighborhood Association. Out of that, we've done two things. One is participated regularly in the 30-year-old activity called the Hawthorne Huddle that Diana founded in her living room, I believe, and it continues today, where for the past 30 years on a monthly basis, civic and community leaders have met and wrestled with the problems of community, with the idea of what we have to be for each other and to each other to make our communities livable, safe, prosperous. Then through that association, we've also created a group called the Northside Urban Coalition. We had a meeting Friday. I wasn't able to make last Friday's meeting, but Diana and the Hawthorne organization afforded me the opportunity to moderate and chair and share the Hawthorne Huddle and the Northside Urban Coalition across our social media platforms. Our intention, our vision is to connect with kindred organizations. Diana is one of around 7, I think, maybe 5 Black women who are leading these neighborhood organizations in the center of Minneapolis, 3 in North Minneapolis, I think, and 3 or 4 in South Minneapolis. But together, they represent the heart of the city, and they have, in my view, a tremendous amount of reach, capacity, and power that is at this point still unrealized. Our job as a communications tool is to support their ability to articulate the interest of the neighborhood and to do that in a way that's collaborative and that amplifies each voice to help create livable, safe, wonderful neighborhoods. So kudos to my friend Diana. Good to see you again as always. How you doing?
I'm fine, Al. How are you this Monday? It's hot out there, and I invite people like you to stay cool. But, I got to tell you again, Al, here we are Monday, and my heart is broken. The little girl that got killed up here, that was not too far from me. And to walk out and see that, and then to turn around, and another accident happened right after that. And then again, last night with the lady in St. Paul, this is just, I don't know. I don't know. I think the heat just didn't really make these folks go crazy. I just don't know. But, everybody, please stay safe.
Take a
But I'm
minute.
glad to be here.
Take a minute and talk about the young child that was killed by a car accident or car situation.
From what I understand, the police was chasing someone, which I'm not understanding why they were chasing this person in a residential area. And the way he hit that car, the car just flipped over and kind of looked like some of it broke in half in some pieces. And the cousin, she's 15, I believe, is still in the hospital with punctured lungs and, you know, real serious condition. And, then you have this little girl, Blessing. She was already here by the good faith of the Lord. She had some issues that she shouldn't have been here, but she made it. But come on, 6 years old, you took her life for no reason. And
Yeah,
he's supposed to be a murderer. Well, you know, I don't know.
yeah. It's uh, painful. Well, we can only pray and then make sure that we keep our minds and hearts attuned to creating public policy
Yeah.
that diminishes some of the likelihood for accidents like this to occur. I know that everybody involved, at least I believe the people in law enforcement that were involved in attempting to pursue somebody who was wanted as a murder suspect,
Hmm.
they've got to be feeling wrecked too. because in their pursuit, the high-speed chase led to the person that was fleeing from them turning into a residential neighborhood, as you said,
Yep.
hitting a car of innocent people,
Yep.
killing a 6-year-old child. And that is painful. It's hurtful. Listen, so let's keep thinking, and let's keep figuring out how we can do things to make our communities better. I want to begin, and one of the arenas is politics. And what we've been doing of late is inviting candidates for public office to show up and talk about their candidacies. To date, we have both Ryan Winkler. Representative Winkler is the majority leader of the Minnesota House of Representatives, but he's running for Hennepin County Attorney. And we also have Major, let me read her name properly, Dawana Witt with us. She'll be joining us after Representative Winkler. She's running for Hennepin County Sheriff, I think, right? Is that right, Major? Yeah. And so that'll be a good conversation. Our friend and colleague from the community, former candidate Tekken Zia Aida is with us. Always great analysis, commentary, criticism, a sharp mind, a sharp wit, a committed person to the community. Let me begin, though, by welcoming you, Ryan Winkler. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the service you've provided in the House of Representatives, and thank you for your intent and your desire to hone in, I think, by running for Hennepin County Attorney. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Thank you very much for having me on, Al and Diana. Your comments about blessings is really pretty poignant. I had a opportunity to go to a vigil that they were having Saturday night with the family, and it was raw and painful, and nobody should be living through that. And yet we also know that we have to find ways to apprehend people who are suspected of murder. We can't let that go, and we have to see that our policies regarding high-speed chase are not going to harm people. So there's a lot we have to dig into from a policy standpoint to make sure that we are, in keeping people safe, we're not creating dangerous conditions for others. And every life lost is a tragedy, and we have lost far too many lives in the last 2 years. So I'm hoping as county attorney to work with community partners, to engage with neighborhoods who are looking to make change and know what their neighborhoods need, to work with law enforcement, to work with police who are ready to do the right things and keep us safe, and build a system that will serve us better than what we have right now.
Take a minute then and sort of go through your thinking process that allowed you to switch from being a legislator to seeking this position as the county attorney. Take the time to really lay out your campaign, why you believe you're the best candidate for the job. And I hope that in the process you deliver with a passion that earns support and voters for you. That's what it's about, is you getting your story to and through the voters. So take the opportunity to share what that is bringing you to this point, Representative.
Well, thanks, Al. I was born and raised in northern Minnesota in Bemidji, and I had a great public school education because we had a state that was spreading property tax wealth out to state aid to schools all over the state. I had a great opportunity to pursue a professional life in a safe community. And I've always believed that Minnesota could do better than other places to create the kind of communities that you and Diana are talking about, places where people can be prosperous and have an opportunity to be safe, of course, but to succeed and to thrive, and not have to be, a six-figure salary or, highly educated or, high financial success kind of person in order to live a good life. I believe in that kind of state. I've worked really hard as a legislator to try to expand the circle of that promise out to as many people as possible, whether it's people who are new immigrants to Minnesota, or people who've been living in neighborhoods that have been under-resourced for far too long, and just workers who are out there trying to work hard and provide for themselves or their families. We have to expand our circle of prosperity and security out to as many people as possible. What I saw during the civil unrest of the summer of 2020 was that our public safety system only works if the leaders in the public safety system have good relationships with each other, if they know the community, if they are involved in the community, understand community needs, and build up trust. And if we don't have strong relationships and trust, the whole system can fall apart very quickly. And I think that's what we saw. And so I was looking at the situation as a legislator where we work on policy and budgets and so on. And I thought that the kind of work we do at the state capitol of bringing people together who have very different ideas, opinions, perspectives, and figure out how to solve problems together. Not always perfectly, but we do that every day. I thought that was missing at the local level on public safety. And overall, I think the kind of community we all want to create for ourselves and our families and our kids, we're never going to have that if people are unsafe, if we continue to have these tragedies, if we continue to have our public safety system fail to serve all the communities in our state. And so I thought it was really a challenge and an opportunity to try to create something better. And that's why I decided to run for county attorney. We do need to prosecute crime. That is a core mission of the county attorney. There's no question about that. But we also have to think about next steps after, about rehabilitation and about diverting and investing early to help prevent crime in the first place. So I really think that partnerships between police and prosecutors and prevention and investment are what we need to focus on in order to be successful. And I think that's what most people in this county are looking for us to do.
When you say investment, what do you mean? Here's what I think are the problems. There's one set of investment ideas that promote more hardware, the militarization of police departments, the warrior attitude, warrior training, things like that. And that kind of orientation and limitless funding, it seems, is perceived by, well, I'll speak for me, I see it, and I think some members of the Black community see it as almost like an attitude of occupation of the Black community. Then there's another debate or discussion or stream of thought, and that I think you're referring to is more clear as a result of the 2020, 2021 responses to the George Floyd murder. And that is that we got to invest in different people and different ideas. So when you say investment, what do you mean?
Sure. I mean, first of all, I think of youth who have an easier time getting access to a gun than they do getting access to a good education or a good summer job or to the kind of mental health or chemical dependency counseling they might need. So investment broadly, long-term in the lives of people in our community to help them be successful is the most important. I think when we look at law enforcement and public safety, the place that we should invest is in recruiting more good police officers for the city of Minneapolis. That's what I consistently hear. It's not that we don't want police, it's that we want more good police to help serve the neighborhood and serve the community. And a big thing that we need to do, there are two things. First, we need to have more investigation of crime so that there's better cases developed, more follow through, and we're more likely to be able to apprehend a suspect and provide a consequence for committing a crime and hurting somebody. Without enough investigation tools, we can't do that successfully. So that's not about armor, that's more about intelligence. Simultaneously, as we're looking to recruit more better police officers or more good police officers into Minneapolis, there are really well-proven models for screening police officers and recruiting based on service to the community and high character, and then teaching them how to be a competent officer. So hire for character, train for competence is a way that we can do that. And I start this not from coming up with my ideas for what we need to invest in, but from sitting down over time, consistently listening to people and hearing what they're saying. And what I have heard is you talked about your views and what some in the Black community might feel. I find that across the board, people want to be safe. They want to be able to trust the civil authorities to come and help if they have a problem. And they want to believe that the justice system is basically fair. We all want that. And we have to get about the business of working on creating that. And I think that can only be done with strong partnerships.
What does equity mean to you? And I'm sort of building on the original question, Representative Winkler. I wrote a piece some dozen or 2 dozen years ago called Black Crime, Black Punishment. The premise was that too often Black people still remain as products of the system. We were products in the transatlantic slave trade, products during the period of a history where we were enslaved and our labor, our lives were stolen from us as a matter of state policy, government policy, and now too often things we do or are criminalized in ways that make it easy for us to be scooped up off the street, out of our houses, anywhere, and then we become fodder again for white economic development. Yeah, I don't know if you hear this kind of story anywhere, but it's one that I am talking about all the time. How do we create a sense of equity where the premise of Black crime, Black punishment was that the Black community has to be a partner in solving crime, preventing crime, the administration of justice, meaning Black judges, Black sheriffs, Black police officers, Black bailiffs, and even Black people that have the contract to put the sod around the jail, the laundry department, all the revenue streams associated with law enforcement, public safety have to be reflective of our equity in the process. Otherwise, we get used. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you are, exactly on point here. I would just add one other thing about the history of our country, which is that social networks, kinship networks, family relationships were intentionally destroyed in order to keep people subjugated. And that fueled and has helped to feed a feeling that somehow the strength of the Black community isn't there to solve problems together. And that is not true. So to me, when I say equity, it's you have to be at the table with people who can tell you about what the challenges are in their lives and what the solutions are, and then try to be a partner. I want to be a partner in bringing the resources and making the changes that fulfill that vision, because I think the strength of the community itself is the answer. The strength of individuals in the community is the answer to these centuries of injustice. And so that, you're talking about one particular way of addressing it, which is to have jobs, business ownership, community prosperity be intentional when we are looking at changing our policies. And I think that is exactly what we need to do. I heard I was talking to a group of entrepreneurs from the North Side this weekend, and they talked about how few affordable storefronts there are for people who are trying to do retail. It's not that they're not starting businesses. It's not that they're not interested in growing and expanding and investing. There's just not much that's affordable to start those businesses in. So where are we investing? Who's deciding where the money is spent? How do we bring those people to the table to start to correct some of those harms? But I'm not going to come up with the needs or the answers. That's going to come from the people who are looking for partners. And that's what that's the approach I would take.
I think you're completely right when you say that the people in the community want to have safe neighborhoods, safe households, and they want resources that enable them to be effective citizens, neighbors, parents, grandparents, and responsible. And so what are the barriers to that? How come when we opened up today, Diane and I were bemoaning this continued and elevated violence? What's the breakdown? How do we get to move beyond the fear that we're talking about and the dysfunction that we're concerned about, and get to where we can, with a sense of genuineness, report out the progress we're making in enabling people to live safe and healthy lives? What's the disconnect as you see it?
Well, I think the old public safety system was designed, and you alluded to this, I would use the word containment. The concept was basically, how do you put a lid on certain neighborhoods and stop crime from spreading to other places. And that is what led to a backlash, naturally, logically, against Minneapolis police. We saw that really fall apart in the summer of 2020, that model. And then we are in the middle of a situation where we didn't create anything to replace it. We don't have community policing. We don't have enough police officers. We don't have police officers reflective of the community right now in Minneapolis. We don't have them able to follow up and investigate or do the things that would be in greater service of the neighborhoods that you're talking about. So we have to create it because we've never had it before. We basically have gone through the bankruptcy of an old system, and we have to create something new. I do think Cedric Alexander, the new Community Safety Commissioner, I had a chance to talk with him. I think he represents a lot of positive promise for creating a kind of police department that will actually serve everyone in Minneapolis. And we have to have a bigger vision. We have to realize that we cannot just use containment anymore. Crime can happen anywhere. We have to engage with neighbors. We have to invest resources in community public safety. We have to get more people out there walking the streets who are not armed, who are not police officers. There are plenty of people who want to do that, invest more in those kinds of organizations, put more public money towards those organizations, build stronger relations between official places like the county attorney's office and those neighborhoods, and figure out how we can bring the resources we have, which are limited right now, and make them do the most good in the neighborhoods.
Do you get much feedback about whether the public feels the county prosecutor is doing a good job or not? I think that in the circles I'm in, people want the police department and the county attorney to prosecute people who commit egregious violations of the law, people that steal and rob and deceive and disadvantage their neighbors, our community. And so, sometimes you have this feeling that white people think that Black people are okay with being robbed or with the robbery or with craziness, up and down the street in our neighborhood, that you think we're allowing it, and we're wondering how come we don't get the same kind of police intervention that we think our neighbors in Edina and other parts of the community get. So how do you propose to both explain and invite the support of the community around effective prosecution? Everywhere I go, people will say, this is among Black people, some people need to be in jail because they're dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
To themselves, they're dangerous to other people. And if we can't take a shortcut here and say, oh, because they're Black, don't treat them that way, that's not what I'm hearing. What I know is true in our community is our neighbors are saying to each other, those people, that person there needs to be out of here because he's a danger to us. So how do you walk that line where you don't come across as being soft on crime on the one hand, but also being irrationally and in a way that's, well, I'm not sure how to say this, but you get the drift of the question.
Yeah, I do.
What's the balance here in ensuring effective prosecution, but also ensuring justice at the same time? That's the question. Justice and effective prosecution.
So, first of all, we know from the data that the most likely victims of crime are going to be people of color, and especially African Americans in Minneapolis data. I think if you expanded that out to the first ring suburbs, you would find similar numbers. And when you're at community festivals, if you're at a community gathering, if you're at a church, if you're talking to people, the message is we need to deal with people who are harming others. We cannot just let this revolving door continue. Of course, as you point out, that's the same kind. For a white leader to be saying that can sound a lot like mass incarceration. That can sound a lot like 3 strikes you're out, and the old kind of approach where we didn't pay attention to what we did after we incarcerated people, and we just tried to make those sentences longer, which doesn't deter crime. Mm-hmm. So I really try to make sure that when I'm talking about prosecution, I'm doing it with the lens of the communities who are best served by a better public safety investment, and make sure I'm listening to that. But we need to, juveniles don't have places to go once they're arrested. The county has in many ways closed down the options that it has. So the Hennepin homeschool is closing down, so there's no place to send juveniles there. The juvenile detention center is taking many fewer. And I think there is there's a reason why we would move away from incarceration only as a model for youth, but then we have to take the next step and actually build the kind of monitoring system and accountability system that can keep them from hurting others. I've heard so many stories about people being arrested for violent crimes, being processed and released, and back to the same thing within the same 24-hour period. We have to stop that, especially when you're talking about people who are harming others and committing violent crime. Nobody should be a victim of that. Doesn't mean lock them up and throw away the key and we never figure out what to do next, but it does mean stopping them from being able to continue to victimize people. And the county prosecutor has to work with other county departments to make sure that we have an adequate solution to repeat offenders.
You've got to leave in a couple of minutes, and I've got Major Dewana Witt standing by to talk about her candidacy as well. But before I have you leave, I'll have you make a sort of a final closing statement. I want to bring in my friend Tekken Zia Aida, because he's always got something to say about politics and community. Tekken, good afternoon, brother. Long time no see. Good to see you again.
Good afternoon, Al and Diana. And Representative Winkler, it's so nice to hear you speak. And I'm excited to know, I did not know that you were from Bemidji. That's where my adoptive mother is from. And so I grew up much of my youth up there on Lake Bemidji. And I know that the real Paul Bunyan is from Bemidji. And so just real quick, I understand, the core mission, prosecute crime, next steps. I'd like to challenge you and say, what about defending the community as the core mission of our Hennepin County attorney? And I also wanted to say that as someone who's a member of the community from the grassroots level, I think that it's going to be a real challenge, or the challenge will be, sadly, to reverse the legacy of Mike Freeman. And I think that is going to be, should you win, and I do hope that you do, the first year or so, really bringing community on board and earning their trust where there has been a huge vacuum for many, many, many years. So those are just some things as I was listening to you speak that I just wanted to put out there for you.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've heard that kind of goes along with that, Tekken, is that people are watched suspiciously when they show up at campaign time to see if they're ever going to keep showing up again. And my track record, and if I'm elected, you'll have to judge for yourself. But my track record as a public official is to create policies with the people that they affect, and to be accountable to them, and have them be accountable for engaging in helping to implement them. And I agree. I think the county attorney has to be present in the community, has to work on relationships. The county attorney has to be present at difficult places and to take feedback and to get blistered if the situation requires you to get blistered. But also, when you have a hard decision to make as a prosecutor, if you build trust, then you might have just a little bit of an opportunity to make a tough decision that people can believe that you're doing in good faith. The same is true on the law enforcement side. Building trust with police leaders who are ready to create the kind of police departments that serve our communities and that we all want, or most of us want, that takes partnership too. And connecting people who, in a lot of ways, have been very separate from each other and really argumentative has to be part of the job of the next county attorney.
That's right. I agree. And also to moving beyond activists and known talking heads. I think that is going to be a really important component to your success.
I've had more good conversations in tents at community events than I have at formal political events. Getting out and meeting people where they're at and hearing what they have to say is the best way to hear what's really going on.
That's right.
Let me have you stay around as long as you're able to. Representative, I want to bring in Major Dawana Witt and have her address our audience. I know you have to leave, but whenever you do, we'll see you and thank you for being here. Major Dawana Witt is a candidate for the next Hennepin County Sheriff. She says she's a wife, a mother, and a grandmother with 22 years experience in law enforcement, serving now as a major at the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. She wants to be the sheriff. Major, good to see you. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Introduce yourself and talk about your passion, your vision, what you bring to our community, and why you want voters to select you as the next sheriff for Hennepin County.
Thank you. My name is Dawana Witt, and as you stated, I have 22 years of experience in law enforcement. I grew up in South Minneapolis. I attended Minneapolis public schools all the way through graduation. My family is very much embedded in South and North Minneapolis. I did not ever see myself being in this profession. I called it an accident that turned out to be my purpose. And I think that's something important to say. It was an accident that I later learned to be my purpose. The reason I say that is I am a person who knows what it feels like to be afraid or not trusting of law enforcement. That was my childhood. Those were my lived experiences. And so with those lenses and then growing into this profession in my late 20s, you know, I knew what it took for me to release some of those barriers that I was having. My passion is being the person that I needed to see growing up as a child experiencing a lot of trauma that no child should ever experience in various types of experiences as well as abuses. I do know that I am the candidate because of those lived experiences growing up, what I've learned throughout my life, and then what I have learned as an adult, that I have what all citizens in Hennepin County need. You know, there's certain things that you don't learn in textbooks. You learn them from your lived experiences. What I can tell you is with my 22 years of experience, I've always been a teacher. I'm also a adjunct professor where I teach juvenile justice and American corrections. And you know, it's not always about the textbook, but it's about being able to be a leader, being able to be vulnerable, and teaching people through lived experiences. Um, so when we talk about being the next Hennepin County Sheriff, the last 3 years I've been here. I was here through when George Floyd was murdered. I was here when we had the high profile trials. I'm a major here at the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office that oversees our two largest divisions. So I had to be the one to lead our agency through those high profile times and to show that I'm somebody who's a part of the community and not afraid of the community that I served. When we had demonstrators outside of the government center and the city hall, I led by example and I went out there and talked to people. I didn't stay behind barriers. I didn't stay behind fence. I understood the pain and the anger that was happening. So, you know, when people talk about what they want to see in that next leadership role, it's very important that you have someone who actually cares about the community that it has taken an oath to trust and protect. Trust and protect, not just serve, because trust is a big word. So, with that being said, I am fueled off of passion at the times that we are having right now. People have asked me, why are you doing this? I don't have a political answer for you. What I can tell you is I'm here because I care, and I care about the direction that this agency goes, and I care about the people that live within this county. And why not me? I know what we need in our leadership, and I'm every bit of that. And so I hope that I'm given the opportunity to be the next sheriff of Hennepin County. Thank
Tell
you.
the story about how an accident led to your purpose.
Mhm. So, you know, my original degree is in chemical dependency and family therapy, and I worked for nonprofit Pillsbury Neighborhood Services as well as Reuben Lynn Family Services, and I had a couple of cases that were very traumatic for me, in the way of which it reminded me of some things that occurred during my childhood. And I had a friend who at the time was a juvenile probation officer for Hennepin County. And she and we were talking about everything that was going on, and we happened to take a tour of the Hennepin County Jail during our lunch break. And the detention deputy who gave me the tour talked about how they needed more women in the field, specifically women of color. So when I started my career, I actually started it as a detention deputy in the jail. And, to me, that was different from law enforcement that I seen in patrol cars or in the neighborhood. It's like, okay, well, maybe I can try this. So I completed the application and I went through all the hoops of to get the job as a detention deputy. And it was there working in the Sally Port, better known as our intake area, that I started having more interaction with police officers of various agencies, where we had conversations and interactions where I got to know them as people behind the badge and the uniform. And that is how my barriers started diminishing, if you will, because I got to know them as people. And don't get me wrong, there were some who were awful, but there were much more that were good. And it was worthwhile having those conversations with. And then my aha light went off and it says, wait a minute, I can do that. I can be who I needed to see. And that's why I say I just did not see this coming.
What was it like your first month or so, or first year maybe, as a detention officer? What kind of aha moments did you have there in terms of looking at people that either you might have known or you might have known their parents? You certainly knew their neighborhoods. You knew their circumstances. What discoveries came to you as a Black woman, a professional, and a person that is in charge of the lives of these men and women in detention, but also with an eye towards protecting the public?
Thank you for that question, Al, because that was very interesting, because where I saw a lot of people that looked like me and they saw people that looked like them. I could tell you there were times where I was told I talked to the inmates too much, or maybe I'm standing too close to someone. And that part was hard, right? As people would write notes as my while I'm doing my field training and things like that. But this is what I can tell you now that I didn't really recognize as a younger person, and that was I was in my comfort zone because I did see people from the community. I did see people I went to high school with. I had family members that I've seen here. So I had those lenses, right? So I was more comfortable communicating, not just giving people directives, but actually communicating and, more importantly, listening. What we need to remember is that people who are in jail, they are still people. And what the vast majority of our citizens need to know is that people who go to jail, the majority go back to their communities. We need to treat people like people. It is not our job as detention deputies or licensed deputies or peace officers to be the judge and the jury. We have a job to do. And I found that, by making sure that you communicate people, you talk to people, and you listen to people, it actually makes your job easier, not harder.
Have you found that some in the profession don't see it the way you just described it? Some see themselves as guardians of, well, I'll say it, of what's right, guardians of the fortress, I guess. And the fortress, in my mind here, is white privilege, white power, white supremacy, or the status quo. You can use any of those terms, and you don't have to use the terms I use because you're running for office. I'm not, so I'll be as controversial as I choose to be in addressing this. But you get my drift. You know what I'm talking about because you come out of the same neighborhood that I'm coming out of and living in right now. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I'm going to go back to lived experience, and if I can, so part of my career, I was also with Dakota County Sheriff's Office, where I rose the ranks. And as the administrative captain there, I oversaw our response to resistance, better known to some people as use of force. And what's important about this story is that the sergeant who oversaw that program.
Oh, we lost your sound. There we go.
Oh, Okay, sorry.
Back.
The sergeant, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. The sergeant who oversaw the program, he and I, we had a really unique way of looking at response to resistance incidents. And again, in case you didn't hear me, it's known as use of force to most people. But here I am, a girl who was actually born in Fort Heights, Chicago, or Fort Heights, Illinois. And so my experience there, the neighborhoods there was a lot more rough than when I moved here to Minnesota, even as a small child. But he is somebody who came from a community where the majority of people were white, and let's just say things were a little bit more sound in his community. In fact, he was not from a community where there was a lot of diversity at all. But one time we were watching a video that occurred in Chicago where two white officers arrested a black male. And the community started gathering and they were yelling different things at the law enforcement officers. And me and the sergeant, we discussed what our responses would be. And our responses were a little bit different if in the way that he would have responded to that a lot sooner than I would have, because he didn't feel uncomfortable. That was a community that I was used to. So, it's like I told him, we had a code there. Just don't get in my face, you know. But, that wasn't his experience. That was mine. So what's important is that we make sure that we're talking to people about these lived experiences. It's kind of like our family upbringing. You're told, don't talk about your family business. Law enforcement is such a way similar to that in regards to this. Nobody understands this, so don't talk to anybody about it. We have to be able to communicate, because there's a lot of times what I shouldn't say more concerned, but one of the things that I'm concerned about is if something is an intentional act of someone doing someone wrong, or racism or anything like that, or am I missing an opportunity to educate someone? And now when I educate you and you do it again, well, then there's a problem. So we got to make sure that we are always educators. It's not just at the time something happens. You need to be doing it all the time. Even in this field where people would say, you know what, you talk about your life, too much of your life to people. Well, it's my life. And I've learned a long time ago that sharing that with some people might put a different view in people's minds. Even as an educator, using those lived experiences, because it's not in the textbook. I know, I teach the textbooks. And so we talk about textbook and we talk about real life in my classes, and so that's really important. More importantly, as we're talking from, not forgetting how people treated me, not forgetting how people made me feel, and making sure that I never ever forget that, because you know what, that's what made me as to who I am today. And I know how it feels when people don't think that your voice matters or your lived experience don't matter. Everybody's important. We got to give people the time of day when we can.
I love what you're saying about recasting or elevating the education, the training, the teaching mission of law enforcement. What I hear you saying, you can correct me if I'm misunderstanding you, is that you see the job not only as the classic view of detainment or restraint or the administrative processes associated with the system, but beyond that, you see a central mission of a professional in the field as educating individuals and community about what is the law and what is proper behavior, proper conduct, and what is not acceptable and not proper conduct. And the idea being that if that's the leading thought, there's not a rush to incarcerate, a rush to detain or use force. Obviously, there are situations where obviously force is required because it's a difficult situation, but it's the orientation, the attitude that you're saying, I think is pretty important. Am I saying it the right way? Am I recapturing what you said?
You are, but there's one clarification is, I think, we have people that are talking about, okay, we need to actively be arresting people. And then you have some people saying, no, we need to build these programs to prevent it. Actually, we need to do both, because you know what? People feel unsafe right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, we do need reforms. We do need to think about what we're doing with our juveniles. We do need to think what we're doing with our adults. But at the same time, we have to protect people, because some people out there, I think you said it earlier, some people need to be in jail.
Yeah.
Again, as somebody who oversees the jail, I can tell you 83% of the people in our custody in Hennepin County has the largest jail in the state are here on felonies. Our top three reasons that we're holding people right now interchangeably between the first through the third are weapons, murders, and domestics with criminal sexual misconducts behind it. We have in jail who we need to, and then keep in mind, it's a pretrial facility. So when we're talking about people being held in our custody, I do have a saying that jail time should not be dead time. We have their attention. We should be putting programming in their different types of deals to make sure that people are getting whatever resources they need. We are not the ones who decide when someone leaves our jail. That goes through the court systems. And so when that happens, why would we just sit and let people not give people anything constructive to think about? We got people here for let's say child abuse. Why are we not offering parenting classes? We have people here that don't have an education past even junior high, some even lower than that. Why don't we have educational programs for everyone, which is something that we do now offer? And something that I'm really proud about is that we actually just had a resource fair at our jail. Again, jail time should not be dead time, but we have to be willing. We have to be willing to invest.
How's resource fair work in the jail? That's interesting.
So we did it on 4 days. Again, it's one of the things that's challenging. Two of the things is, one, because it's a pretrial facility, we don't know how long people will be in our custody. Two, being the bigger jail, and it being the first time, we had to limit our classes. We have a classification center here, a classification system here at the jail. So there's certain people that we cannot mix, or if people in housing units cannot be mixed with other housing units. And then let's not forget that we're still not completely out of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So those were some of the challenges. So we had to do it over several days and move it around. But again, we have to start from somewhere, because the wrong thing to do was nothing. And so that was important. But again, we got to stop talking about we have to do one or the other. We need to do both. People are dying. People are hurt. People are scared. Guess what? Nobody thrives in those communities, no matter where you're at or who you are. Nobody thrives. So we got to get a handle of what's going on. And yes, let's start talking about preventive programs and actually people taking action to do things that actually work within the various communities.
Your story and your career sort of exemplify the intent of the piece I wrote that I referred to earlier, a piece that was entitled, that I published in Insight News, might have been 15 years ago, Black Crime, Black Punishment, a piece that called for including, or the word we use now is equity, but that means more of our people at every level of the process, from judges to prosecutors to defenders to pretrial workers and counselors to probation officers to clerical staff inside the facilities to officers who do the patrol or do the work in the community, to the contracts to build facilities, to do the maintenance, the electrical work, contracts to do the sodding, for example. And all of that suggests trying to teach our community to understand the economy, the economics of public safety and of community and of governance, right? And it's also an attempt from our point, to talk about and encourage our people to think broadly about the entire apparatus and its relationship to us and ours to it, that at the end of the day, we have to see ourselves as the owners of the enterprise of community safety.
And Al, may I also say too,
Go ahead,
that is the fulfillment of the DFL diversity and inclusion statement.
Okay.
And so, your piece, Major Witt's life story, these are the things that the DFL says should be first and foremost in our minds as we look for those new individuals to lead and be a part of our community's government. And I think that that is a very important thing to state as voters take a look at not only Major Witt, but all the other candidates across the different seats that are up for grabs right now. And as they look to make the right decision on behalf of the entire community.
And you know what? I think until we really get new leadership in here, it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to change. We need that fresh ideas. We need that fresh blood. And like you say, why not give these people a chance? Because they
That's right.
are the ones that's out here. They know what's going on, you know? So I'm all for fresh ideas, and I'm all for anybody new taking the position.
And Major
Pickling,
Witt.
if I could just add to, though, it's, people are like, what's missing in leadership?
Mm-hmm.
We need people who aren't just doing it because it's a job. We need people that actually care. I've been around for quite some time, and yes, most of my career, I did go to Dakota County, but what people don't know is, why did I ever leave Hennepin County in 2004? And when I wasn't a person who was getting promoted, I'm the person asked why. What am I doing wrong? And I overheard a conversation that was not meant for me to hear. And it was my lieutenant at the time who made the comment that she knows too many people that are in jail, whether they're people in the community or her family members. That's why I left.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we hearing now? We are hearing we need people who know the community, who
Yep.
know about the community. So when we're looking, what is the connection? If you listen to just stereotypes or statistics, I should not be in this position right now, because when I tell you I went through a lot and there are a lot of barriers, that's true. I'm by far from a perfect person, and never will I claim to be that person, but I'm not the person who keeps knocking my head against that same spot on that same wall.
That's right.
And you know what? We actually grow from our mistakes, not just keeping it safe and being successes, but our kids out here need to see that, yeah, guess what? I have some of the same experience that you did. And yes, there is a way out. I know what it feels like to think like, I don't know what my life is going to be, or what a good life looks like. We're asking what's wrong with our kids right now. There's a population of kids that we're forgetting about, and that's the kids
That's right.
that are afraid to say no to their peers, and they're getting caught up in all of these violent activities as well as other juvenile delinquency activities, because they're not even seeing the accountability piece of their friends. They're afraid to say no. We cannot forget them. So that's
That's
again why it can't be one or the other. We need to act now and help our babies out, as well as our senior citizens, and we can't just talk about it. It is time. It is past time that we be about it. And so that's what I'm looking for: people who are ready to just take action. And again, we do need a plan, because we know that this is that there needs to be reform in the system through and through. But
You
guess what?
mentioned
I can't do it by myself. We got to do it together. It's a system. It's all of us, and we have to do it together.
you mentioned a family that has deep roots in North and South Minneapolis. Take about a minute. We're almost out of time to talk about your family and the expanse of your family.
Okay. So, well, I'll talk about my family, my husband. I have 2 adult daughters, and I have 2 grandkids who think that I'm perfect. So don't let anybody ever ruin that for me. Um, and then, my grandmother, who's actually owned her townhome in North Minneapolis for over 30 years now, and this is a woman from Mississippi, y'all, who no longer
What part
goes
of
on the
Mississippi?
first
What part?
North Minneapolis.
No, what part of Mississippi? What
I'm
part of
sorry.
Mississippi is she from?
Oh, I do not know the city. I've
Okay.
never been there, but
Okay.
you would think she's still from Mississippi, and grandma ain't been there in a long time. But she lives on the 3rd floor of her townhome because she has had a bullet go through her walls.
Mm-hmm.
She was somebody who used to work for Hennepin Healthcare, formerly known as HCMC, who went into early retirement because she was mugged outside of her home as she was taking a bus, because she's never driven. As far as like my aunts, my cousin, I have a very, very large family. And I will tell you, some of us are on different sides of the law. But they are my family. And you know what? We make things work. There's some things that talking to one of my cousins who plays with her kids in the backyard. She's also a Northside resident because too much is going on in the front. You know, when I did a community conversation at a barbershop in North Minneapolis, and one of the things we talked about is what happened to the Boys and Girls Clubs, what's going on
That's
at the
right.
YMCA. We know they still exist, but the activity is not the same. I was that kid.
Oh, we lost her.
Yeah, just a second. She'll probably come back.
Where, you know, it was
There
a
we go.
South. Oops, almost lost you. But when we're talking about sense of community, who are your neighbors? Do you know your neighbors? Do you know what they need? You know, when we have kids that are not playing on the same teams because they're going to different schools or different places to play ball or whatever, we're losing that sense of community. So when we talk about my family, it's different. And me and my cousins, we talk about that all the time. It's like it is not the same where everybody knew everybody, you know, but now everybody's so secluded into their homes and into doing their own thing. My
Well,
community is my family. That's how I was raised.
That's
So
right.
you got a boatload of great endorsements. I see you're endorsed by Dean Phillips and Representative Hoda Hassan and Representative Sandra Feist and Commissioner Kevin Anderson, a lot of Council President Andrea Jenkins. Those are A-listers, so congratulations on that. Listen, we want you to come back again and again. Our objective every Monday is to keep the political energy front and center in our community. We want the political candidates to have to and want to connect and respond to our community by showing up. And I can tell you this,
yes,
we'll keep an open invitation. And whenever you show up, if I see you, I'm going to say, how you doing? What's on your mind? And you'll have the opportunity to say, if it's only 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, what you're thinking about right now. But my goal is to make sure that your voice and your work is accessible to voters and that our people are comfortable questioning you, supporting you, challenging you, but expressing our interest as a community and as voters. And Tekin, thank you for being here. Diana, thank you for being here. Major, thank you to Ryan for being here earlier. I see Brenda Lyle-Gray is here. Brenda, bring you on to wrap up the show. I want to remind people to join us again tomorrow at 1 o'clock because tomorrow at 1, I've got a special guest. One of them anyway is my brother, Micah. Micah McFarlane is, I think the name is spelled wrong on Justin. You have to change that, Vosh. It's Justin Hartley. So we got to correct that, pull that down if you would, so we don't have that image. But Micah is the founder and owner of this company called Revel Spirits, and they produce a tequila-like alcoholic beverage grown by farmers in Morelos, Mexico, and they bottle it, bring it here, and he's marketing it nationwide. And Micah is one of the few people in that industry that's making major waves, winning major awards for the product. So he's going to be here talking with me tomorrow and setting in motion a conversation the following week with Justin Hartley. Justin Hartley is the star of a television show.
This is us.
This is Us, an award-winning television show. He and Micah are partners in this business, and they are going to be promoting a concert, I think, of next Friday and Saturday in Minneapolis. That concert includes another megastar out of the Black experience, and that's Gary Clark Jr. And so if you're into the blues and to that genre of music, you have a chance to check out that music, but it's being brought to you, supported by my brother's business and company, Revel Spirits. And I'm excited that he's also been a sponsor and promoter of the Conversations with Al McFarlane initiatives. Well, Brenda, we're out of time. Any thoughts, impressions, feelings about today's program?
I am just thrilled to hear Dewana Witt. Everything you said made sense because we forget when they close the bars that there are still humans behind there, and especially the young people. So I wish you the very best. Tegan, it's so good seeing you. I miss that voice and that wisdom. So
Thank you.
really good seeing you.
Okay, Diana, thank you so much. And again, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. Have a great, great day. Talk to you. Bye-bye.